But there's new life in the labor movement. I mean, who would have thought before it happened that Amazon would have a union election and a warehouse in Long Island is unionized? I mean, that's not supposed to happen. 300 Starbucks stores are unionized. There's reform elections within the Teamsters and the auto workers of rank and file people saying, listen, if Congress isn't going to raise my wages, my union's going to raise my wages. And you just saw, a reform effort in the Teamsters build over years and years and years. And lo and behold, their new president and the workers standing together have got $30 billion that they can vote on in a contract. I think we're to the point now where Congress is so dead and so bad, and the leaders are dying on national TV, that a lot of these questions are being answered in the workplace. And you know what? That was where the power formed that later pushed politicians to support all the things we take for granted now: Social Security, Medicare, the minimum wage, the weekend, the 40-hour work week. That started because we had political will and power in the workplace. And I think when that eroded, we got a Democratic Party that, went to Wall Street because the workers weren't pushing it. And as far as I'm concerned, give us more power in the workplace.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely resonating. Your work is going to go a long way. I checked the view count, 1.8 million on YouTube at this point.
Oh, geez. I hope I didn't have something in my teeth.
Oh, well, dude, you just rock the mullet proudly. That's all you got to do. The only thing you need is like a Pabst Blue ribbon, to go right along with it. You're rocking it, baby. If you don't have to roll and you want to hang with us, we're gonna transition over to what is a very important part of this conversation, and that is the third-party fervor that is growing by the day with Dr. Cornel West. And what we're ultimately looking for here is some type of stabilization, because he's doing a lot of shows, he's getting his name out there and all that, but there doesn't seem to be a real campaign infrastructure as of yet. Nevertheless, he is becoming a real thorn in the side of the establishment. You want to hang around?
Yeah, I'll hang around. I have to admit, I've tuned out of short-term politics and into the union politics, but sure, I would love to. It's all interesting.
Well, if anybody is running for president that is going to try to channel the energy that's going to come through labor, which is where we need to be anyway, I do believe it will be Dr. Cornel West. Colin, if you could please cue up the wonderful clip of what corporate media has been saying as of late about Dr. Cornel West and what a threat to democracy this man really is.
Such a menace.
Well, first of all, I agree with Tom that we should be very concerned about the prospect of a second Trump term. Anyone who thinks Donald Trump can't win next time round is not paying attention, wasn't paying attention to the margins in places like Wisconsin in 2020, doesn't understand how American politics works, which is fundamentally a two-party system. And then there's a few swing voters and a few people who want to vote third party. I think the third party threat is very serious. It's always been very serious. I don't think it just comes from no labels and a Joe Manchin type, but it also comes from someone like a Cornel West, who I personally have a lot of time for his politics, but I think it's mad for the left to vote for Cornel West when fascism is at the door.
I'm glad you brought up Jill Stein, because the counter argument here. Jill Stein's actually helping you with this run. And 7 years ago, when she was the Green Party candidate, Hillary Clinton's world blamed her in part for that loss. And Democrats are worried you're going to play that role this time around. So what do you say to people, to Democrats who are worried you'll tip the election?
He seemed to be a very charming man. And he's also a menace to the threat of the continued constitutional order in the United States. And I say that because look what Ralph Nader was directly responsible for the election of George W. Bush, which brought about this horrific Iraq war and this horrific economic downturn we had, among other things. Jill Stein, who's his campaign manager, is almost certainly an agent of the Russian government. If you don't believe me, somebody at home, Google photo, General Flynn, Vladimir Putin, Jill Stein. She was hosted by the Russians prior to her running in 2016.
And I wonder if part of the reason that Cornel West is running as a third-party candidate and those who support him want to pull from Biden.
Oh
dangerous-
yes, the
it's a dangerous
propaganda
man.
wheels are spinning. They are so scared of him. I love it.
Yeah, and even though Colin wasn't able to throw it in there, I have a real, like, I don't want to say a soft spot. I have a hard spot for Donnie Deutsch, who is just a mini Trump. I mean, that's really what he is. Another guy who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and acts like he's some, really successful guy who did it all on his own, and talks about how Morning Joe is going to be taken off the air because Cornel West is going to cause Trump to win. Trump's going to do this and the other thing. Yet they're so convinced that everything is just fine the way it is right now. Clearly, in my opinion, what Dr. West is doing is right. If he's making this much of a stir this early on with all of the prospects that could be coming in the near future, I know a lot of people fret the idea of running a third party, but look at it this way. 5% can literally change the way that, the party infrastructure is established here in this country. And the fact that he's getting this, even if it's negative attention, Trump has always said, give me whatever publicity you want. Any publicity is good publicity in his mind. I think for Cornel West, it actually is any publicity is good, because once people know what he's about, I think the general consensus around him is going to be, I like what he's saying. And you know what? What the hell do I have to lose at this point?
Yeah, my problem with all of it is the flat out lying, and that none of these people call out these people on their lying, whether it's Anderson Cooper actually sitting there listening to James Carville slander Jill Stein, which, by the way, like, honestly, that almost sounded actionable to me. I'm just saying, like, it's absurd that he called her an agent of Russia. Like, that's just absurd. And, any of those things where what's her face was saying, I don't even know what her name was, about that, instead of saying, well, but they were wrong when they said Jill Stein was responsible for Hillary Clinton's loss, because she was. The numbers don't show that. The numbers don't show that at all. The numbers don't show that Nader took away, and yet they keep repeating this narrative and no one calls them out on it. I find it very frustrating. And then on top of that, when they think, oh, he's a spoiler, and let's just say hypothetically he could do that, my answer would be good. If they were doing their job, he wouldn't need to be doing this. That's my thought.
Yeah, I think anything that can leverage one of America's major political parties that's not dominated by Donald Trump to address the fact, so many of the experts that you just ran in the reel there, are very, very concerned about the threat of, anything to take Biden off of his track, right? Well, without examining the threat that continuing to support this system is the biggest threat of all. So anybody who can force this conversation into a place of what are we doing for the broad masses of working class people who feel like this is no longer working for them, that is what we really have to do. And any amount of pressure that can be brought to bear there, whether it's by people, forcing Biden's hand, or whether it's by a Trump of the left, the Tea Party's one of the major parties, or whether this is down the line and we build it in the workplace, I think it needs to force the system to change, because otherwise it'll just continue on.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.